uh, finish the chapter. So today will be the summary of this chapter. Any doubts, please stop me there. I'll explain it again and then we'll proceed. Because many of you were not there for the chapter, so you don't understand. I'll stop and I'll explain. So from this chapter onwards, Krishna is awakened from his horrible dream. That is, till now he was under the delusion of a different perspective towards the war. So from this, after hearing Krishna explaining 4 chapters, from this chapter, he's awake, but it is like as if he's woken up from a bad state of dream. So he starts this chapter by asking 2 questions. That is renunciation of action or full participation in action. Are they which is best? Which should we follow? Renunciation of action is otherwise called as Sanyasa. Then full participation in Sanyasa Jnani, full participation in action is called Grihastha Jnani. So which is better? That is his question. But Krishna explains there are 2 different exercises to be practiced seriously, not simultaneously. That is, we cannot practice both together. Both are 2 different aspects, need to be followed by each individual in which state of life they are in. So here, performance of action is nobler than renunciation of action. So why is it so? Because we are all born with particular vasanas. That is, from the previous birth, this birth, we have lots of attachments, detachments. We don't have detachment, attachments, likes, dislikes. So because of all this, we are addicted towards the life what we have, and we think whatever right in before us is what the reality is. For us to move away from this reality and to understand the self, we have to be in Grihastha ashrama, because Grihastha ashrama will help us to get matured from the ego and will always help us to rise above the lower height. So that is why Krishna says being in the family and becoming a jnani will always be a better sannyasa than just wearing orange robe, going, sitting there and meditating will not be that easy for a person if his vasanas are not nullified. So now he talks about the sannyasa ashram. What is sannyasa ashram? A sannyasi, he should, that is the opposites, likes and dislikes, the opposites, pleasure and sorrow. So all the opposites. So sannyasi should not have any of this. He should be in a neutral state. So he has gone beyond these perceptions of duality. That is likes, dislikes, hot, cold, pleasure, pain, all the dualities, whatever. When we experience one extreme, it is definitely we are tend to experience the another. So it is like a pendulum. When a pendulum goes to an extent on one side, then you can naturally expect the same force to be in the on the other side. So, but whereas a sannyasi, nothing will affect him. His perceptions towards these dualities will be nil. So he is one who has transcended the inner instrument of mind and intellect. That is, he is beyond everything. That is, he's gone above his intellect, where he understands his original self, the self. So Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. What is Sankhya Yoga? Sankhya Yoga is nothing but a Karma Yoga. Here, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga are 2 different yogas. Sankhya Yoga is related to Sanyasa Yoga and Karma Yoga is related to Grihastha. So here I can give you 2 examples. In the picture, you can see 2 houses. One, a person living alone in the house, he's a sannyasi, he's performing the duties, he's meditating, he's doing everything, whatever scriptures is mentioned. Whereas here the person is living with the family and also following the same, whatever the scriptures are mentioned. Diligently meditating, reading the Sravanam, Mananam, and Nidhityasana. He's doing everything. End of it. What will be the result of both the jnanis? They'll attain moksha. So any yoga you follow, any sannyasa or a grihastha, but when you follow everything diligently, definitely the end, the reaching point where you, the end point of this yoga is moksha. So, but end of it, meditation will be the last means for us to understand, to us to develop ourselves or raise ourselves to the level of jnani. So without meditation, just following the karma yoga will not give you moksha. So here we are talking about self-development. How when a metal is oxidized or metal now what we'll do, we'll apply the polish, we'll wait for a few minutes, and then we'll use a clean cloth to rub the metal. So what happens after that? The metal will be polished and it will be bright and shiny. Same way, why do we perform all these yogas? That is self-development and self-growth. What happens when we start doing all these actions, that is yajna mentioned in the last chapter? Right action purifies the mind from its vasanas. So the vasanas are the oxidized thing that covers the intellect and the mind. So when we start performing the duties, like how the polish removes the oxidation, the duties what we perform will remove the vasana.
Vasana means what?
Vasana நீங்க வந்து நம்மளோட பூர்வ ஜென்மத்துல அதுக்கு முன்ன ஜென்மத்துல எல்லாம் இருந்து நம்மளுக்கு ஆன கர்மாஸ், அதாவது உங்களுக்கு ஒரு சில அட்டாச்மெண்ட் இருக்கும். ஏனே தெரியாது, எனக்கு இந்த பொருள் மேல ரொம்ப பிரியமா இருக்கு, இந்த மேல நான் அட்டாச்சா இருக்கேன், எனக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிச்சிருக்கு, இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய இருக்கும். ஒரு சில வாசனாஸ் அடிக்ஷன்ஸாவும் இருக்கும் சார். அதாவது நீங்க இந்த ஒரு பிளேஸ்ல அடிக்டடாவே உட்கார்ந்துருக்கீங்க அப்படின்னா தென் நேச்சுரலி நீங்க வந்து அது கூட உங்களுக்கு நெக்ஸ்ட் பர்த்ல அது ஒரு அடிக்ஷனா உங்களுக்கு வரும். Anything you are addicted to, anything you suppress, எல்லாமே வந்து becomes a vasana. So here practicing the path of karma diligently, either through the renunciation of action or through detachment from all this action. அதாவது நம்ம ஆக்ஷன்ஸை அதாவது ஆக்ஷன்ஸ் ரெனவுன்ஸ் பண்ணா மட்டும் பத்தாது. ஒவ்வொரு ஆக்ஷன் whatever we do, we expect a result from the action. So we should not expect any results from the actions we perform. So that is the detachment we have to follow. Path of selfless and unattached activities develops qualities of poise and single-pointedness of mind. Purified mind can alone meditate for hours. This meditator is the one who experiences the self in himself. That is, when our vasanas are clear, then naturally our mind and intellect is purified from all the vasanas. So sitting in meditation will be easier for us to follow. Then the pura is when a state of quietude is achieved within. And then action, which is selfless and without expectation of the result, the person exhausts his existing vasanas. So how do we exhaust our existing vasanas? We have to be selfless. We should not expect any result from the action we perform. And through karma yoga, a man can gain an inward peace. Egocentric activities motivated by desires alone can create vasanas. So subsequently, it reduces our discriminative awareness to experience the self. That is like what we are very much centered in our egocentric. Still, we have not discovered the self. So for all the actions we do, it is motivated by our desires. So when that happens, when a desire is motivated by us, then naturally we create a vasana around us. So subsequently, what happens? It reduces a discriminative awareness about the self. So the realized yogi never claims his action. There is no sense of ego is left within him. So a realized yogi, how his state of mind will be like how if we sign in a running water, what happens? Yeah, that is how will be the state of a jnani. So a yogi who has controlled his body, mind, and intellect is best fitted for the highest meditation. So therein the yogi rediscovers the self. The yogi realizes his own self as the self in all beings. Like how when a wave rises from the ocean, it is not different from the ocean. This part of the ocean and end of it merges with the ocean. It never differentiates. This wave is small, that wave is higher, and because of the tide, I have the best waves. Ocean never differentiates that. So, in such a way, a jnani sees each and every individual as the same and never differentiates anybody or any objects before him. So now in this 8th and 9th verse, how will a jnani be? How will be eating? How will he be sitting? How will he be walking? Will he be walking? Will he be sitting in one place? That is the question that is being asked in this 8th and 9th verse. So what here Krishna compares a jnani to a sleepwalker. A sleepwalker, when he walks in the night, is unconscious. But whereas yogi is ever conscious of his consciousness. So it is like when we sleep, when we sleep in the night, we have a deep sleep. நல்லா ஆழ்ந்த தூக்கத்துல நம்ம தூங்கணும்னா எந்திரிச்சு என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு நம்மளுக்கு தெரியுமா? Will we be aware? But we'll have that kind of an anandam, ஒரு satisfaction and a kind of a bliss இருக்கும். That deep sleep, the state, the period of deep sleep, what is happening தெரியாம ஒரு blissல நாம இருப்போம். அதுதான் yogi. That is what the state of yogi's mind is. But he'll be ever conscious of the consciousness, not unaware of the consciousness, but aware of the consciousness. So total surrender comes only to the perfect master, and he is the one who is centered and steadfast. Self-centeredness, and a person who centered himself through study, reflection, and meditation, and intellectually remains centered in the self. That is Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Like how, for a simple exercise, what here Swamiji asks us to perform is, ask us to be an observer of ourselves. That is, in case if I'm presenting the verse today, he's asking me to be an observer of the presentation that is happening now. I should not be the presentator. I should be the observer. When you start practicing that, naturally in everything you start being an observer of yourself, where you will not be involved in what you are doing.
Being mindful observer.
Chess is an observing game.
Because when you play the chess game, the player should be an observer of himself. Only then he make the moves correct. The self-absorption, self-realized yogi lives and experiences the self, nothing but the self. But he is not different from any of us. Will he eat? Yes. Will he sleep? Yes. Will he walk? Yes. Will he bathe? Yes. Everything will be the same. And you are Grihastha, Nani, you attain Jnanam. What happens next day? You have the same role. You are the wife, you are the mother, you are the daughter, you are the sister, you are the child. Everything, the role and the work you do will be the same. Only thing you will be in Ananda 24/7, 365 days, as if you are on a holiday. So I am the maker and I am not the actor. So that will be understood that the role we are playing now, Ramji or Krishna says, we are actors, performers, performing. But whereas when you understand the self and you start living by the self, That is where when you start living your life. By discovering the truth, I am an observer of my own action. So total detachment is impossible for human mind. So what here Krishna says, human mind is in such a way that we get attached to anything in life. Like we cannot be detached from anything. So here he asks us to get ourselves attached with the self, with the Atma. So getting attached ourselves with the Atma, then naturally our attachment will be more towards Atma. So we have to attach ourselves to the real, that is the Atma, the self. Surrender all our attachments to Brahman. So merits and demerits belong to the ego, never to the Atman. So the ego comes to suffer the perfect and the imperfect reaction of its own action. Here, when we look at the mirror, what we see, some mirrors show us big, some mirrors portray us big, some mirrors portray us thin. So, but that is all the reflection. That is not the real view what you're seeing. The scriptures are here to show us the real I, the higher I, the Atma, the self. So let's start seeing that way rather than seeing the mirror and worrying the not real I, the egocentric of me. So yogi draws nourishment for his individual existence from the world of objects, but never remains perfectly detached from his own merits but ever remains perfectly detached from his own merits and demerits. We all know the lotus leaf. It is born in the water, it dies in the water, it decays in the water. But whereas while it's living, can water enter the lotus leaf? So that is how the state of Jnani's mind will be. Because he will draw nourishment from the society around him, but he will not get himself attached to anything that is around him. So, Jnani is a detached person. He'll be an observer of himself, ever conscious of the very observer in ourselves, that is in himself and the self. Witness attitude, he'll always have a witness attitude. That is Sakshi Bhava. That is witness attitude is you will be a witness for you. So there will be no one else observing you. So for purification of the ego, mind becomes clearer and steadier, rendering the reflection of the divine consciousness. So then when we become detached, when we become an observer, when we start understanding the self, when we start performing the witness acting, naturally what happens is it purifies the ego within us. So mind becomes clearer and steadier, and when everything happens, we'll see the reflection of the self within ourselves. So, pace of steadfastness, renouncing egocentric sense of agency, is bound, tied down to some expected results of his own action. That is like a frog performing an exercise to become a bull. We all are imagining something and running in our life behind something and trying to become something actually we are not. So basically we have to ground ourselves, understand the self, understand our limitations, and then start acting accordingly. So renouncing the egocentric sense of agency, that is the 5 sense organs, to get ourselves detached. So sannyasa is not mere physical escapism. Like most of the people think that sannyasa means let me just wear orange robe, go sit somewhere on the banks of river Ganges and start meditating. That will only bring your turmoil even more. It is a renunciation only for the physical aspect of your body. But whereas is your mind and intellect clear? No. When the mind and intellect is not clear and it is in a turmoil, will you be able to sit in that place and meditate and understand the self? No. realize the self. More than understand the self, realize the self. No. Even in the ashram, you have to perform the duties. Only then they'll start teaching you about the Vedas and everything. So everywhere you have to perform karma or action. So it is a mental withdrawal from things that are unintelligent and thoughtless. Sanyasa is a self-controlled individual. He has renounced all his egocentric and desire-prompted actions. He comes to live in nameless joy, contentment, and peace. Thus, he remains contented and happy in the city of nine gates. The nine gates, what we have already seen, 7 gates. So, here they are talking about the Atma. So, sannyasa is nothing but the self. That is the self which is renounced all the egocentric, desire prompted actions. So, it is like he doesn't know, he is not even bothered about the name of the person. If example, if I realize the self, then I will not, I may be least bothered about the name of me, where I live, what work I do. For me, it will be like I'm living inside the kingdom of 7 gates. That's what this verse is explaining. So once you attain that state, naturally everything like 9 gates, sorry, 9 gates. So everything else becomes unimportant for us. The nature of a self-controlled man of perfection and his experiences. Here they talk about 2 words, Vibhu and Prabhu. Vibhu and Prabhu are nothing but the Atma, that is the God principle. The relationship between the Atma and the Anatma. This girl, the reflection of this person is seen in the water. But will the reflection be the same as of the girl? Because the reflection, when we see the water, the reflection always depends upon the flowing nature of the water. So in the same way, Atma is inside us. But whatever it is seeing is the reflection. Whatever we see, this egocentric body, what it is visible for us is not the true self. It is only the reflection. And the reflection keeps on changing according to each one's vasana, each one's prarabdha karma, each one's nature, whatever nature we are born with, the reflection keeps on changing. But does Atma participate in any of the actions we do? Does Atma has a shape? Is Atma reflect anything that happens around it? It is just an observer. So the Supreme Self creates or sanctions any action or results of action. Functions of Atma and its relationship with the 3 bodies. That is, we have seen, now I have explained what is the relationship between the Atma and the 3 bodies. 3 bodies is the Sthula, Sukshma and the Karna Sharira. So the self, only because of the self, the Sthulam, Sukshma, Shariram is sentient. If the self is not present, then we will be a Jadam. So when the self is not present, existent activities are not possible. So there must be so obviously there must be a relationship between Atma and the Anatma. Only because Atma is inside us, we are sentient and we are able to perform whatever duties we are performing. So again, this the Atman, the self is only a spectator of what happens with the 3 bodies. So it is electricity principle we have already seen. Like electricity is invisible to us, Atma is also invisible to us. There is the same plug point. But when you plug in the radio, what happens when the electricity comes? The radio starts singing or speaking, whatever it is. You plug in your fan, then air starts circulating. So the activities are different, but the main connection is the electricity. So in the same way, we are different embodiments, but basically we all are Atma. To me, I function through the equipments that are natural to me. The conditions serve the ego gathers all the actions and anxieties and their result. The enjoyer of the fruit and performer of the action in us are the ego, not the Atma. So the Supreme who is all pervading, again Vibhu. So the God or deities don't have any merits and demerits of us. It's like we think that gods all note down all the merit and demerit of us and give us the sanction as the life. No. When whatever happens to our life, we think it is all responsibility because God has given you. No. It's all because of you. Whatever you perform, whatever karma you've undertaken, everything in this birth happens only because of that. You can see two pictures. One, that is a plain glass. When the sunlight is reflected through the plain glass, then what happens? It is a clear sunlight. Whereas when the sunlight is reflected through a stained glass, what is the result of it? Yeah, that is what it is. Atma is the same. It is the self-illuminating. Everything is the same. But whereas what embodiment it is reflected through is what the egocentric body that we identify ourselves with. So self passing through knowledge, jnanam, emerge out as self. The same self, when it passes through ignorance, the body-mind complex is splits into endless world of plurality. When knowledge comes, ignorance has to depart. Knowledge is enveloped by ignorance. So do we have a time frame for that? No. We have to diligently perform everything, and whatever will happen in due course of time. So here, it is a very cloudy sky. Sun is not seen. So do we think sun is not there? Sun is still there. The same way, because we don't see the Atma, can we say Atma is not there? No. So like how Surya Kori Samaprabha, that is how effluent the sun is. It doesn't need external light to illuminate it. Same way, Atma is like the sun. It is self-effluent and it does not need any other outside external factor to illuminate it. So jnana of the self lifts the ignorance, and end of ignorance, the ego too ends. When the ego has ended, knowledge becomes self-evident. And ignorance is enveloping the infinite. When the ignorance is removed, the self becomes manifest. The ego rediscovers the self, it becomes the self. So the self is already within us. When the ego moves away and this ego finds the self, then ego becomes the self. So realized man will never fall back again into ignorance and sensuousness. That is like you had a very bad dream, a tiger is chasing you in the dream. But as soon as you wake up, are you scared the tiger is going to come and chase you again? No. The same way, once you were realized man, then naturally you are a realized man. You can never go back. The ego comes to total extinction, ending the dreary darkness of ignorance. Self-realization will be the final experience. No more the finite will have its own self-created world of finitude and imperfection. So anything can happen, but none of the external factors will again take you back to the egocentric human what we were before realizing the self. So here, you can be a Brahman. That is a Brahman who is well-versed in Vedas and he is considered highly meritorious. And you can be a cow. But you can, because cow is a very sacred animal that we all in the Hindu culture, we give importance to cow. And elephant is considered to be the Vinayaka, to be equal to Vinayaka, and or a lowest man that they are called as dog eaters, can be. But for a jnani, all four are the same. So self-realized casts an equal eye on a Brahman, endowed with scholarship along with humility. Cow, the sacred animal in Hinduism. Elephant, the equivalent to Lord Ganesha. Dog, faithful animal of a human. or a Pariya, uncultured person. Everywhere he realizes the presence of the same truth, whoever it can be. So here Shankaracharya, in one of his words, he quoted that respecting a Brahman as equal as a dog is also not right, and respecting a dog as equal as a Brahman is also not right. That is, everyone should be seen in the same way. Samatvam of the Samadarshan. That is, the mind ends, the limited ego with the hold of samsara also ends. Mind is what manas. Like in the second chapter, we have in Vast, we've seen the importance of how mind being of what is it? Mind is the one which gathers knowledge of the outside world through our sense organs. So when the mind calms down and the mind is under the control of the intellect, not the intellect under the control of the mind should be under the control of the intellect. So when that happens, the limited ego that holds the samsara is the pain and joy that we experience now, also ends. So ego stripped of samsarika sorrows rediscovers itself to be nothing than the self. So you can see each river has two banks. Only when the bank is strong, the river can flow through it. If the bank also changes its course according to the river, will the river flow peacefully? So basically, the substratum in each one of us is the same and it is the strongest. That is what the self is. Only that is why we are able to experience, each individual has different experiences and we are able to experience a different things in life only because whatever happens in the end, realizing the self becomes very important to us. So if such a person who has conquered his mind and who lives in perfect equanimity in all conditions of life, in all its relationship, he indeed rests in Brahman. Like how the water flows through the both of its bank. Even for us also, we have the strong substratum, the Atma. So we will start resting in the Atma, the Brahman. This is also one example. Lighthouses are built always on the rocks or on the side of the seashore. Whereas it's not affected by tides, high tides or low tides, waves, whatever it is. But whereas a weed, which just we'll see what happens to it. Whenever wave comes, it is tossed up and down. Whereas lighthouse, it stays strong. That's how we have to be. That is, being in Atman, understanding the self will be like a lighthouse where nothing will affect us and we will be strong. So here again, if someone else dies in a village, will we be affected? Maybe a neighbor, maybe someone from the corner of the village, will we be affected? No, but if that person is closer to us, how will our reaction be? So the man who realized the Brahman discovers in himself, in his own wisdom, a balance and an equipoise which cannot be shattered easily. But for that person, even when a relative is dead, he comes back to normality in a very quick time because he understands the principle behind it. Intellect becomes steady, not poisoned with the usual egocentric misconceptions. The one who knows Brahman, becoming Brahman, he will be established in the Brahmika consciousness of infinite beatitudes, God, man walking upon the earth with unlimited happiness and joy. So such a person is called God man because he'll be walking upon the earth with unlimited happiness and joy. Then nothing will test for him. He'll understand it perfectly and he will not be affected by anything that happens around him. So the contact with the external world are clipped down. We get awakened by the ultimate joy in realizing the self. before realizing the self, we were having different roles, like what we can see in the picture. We will be like a father, we'll be a friend, we'll be a mother, we'll be a daughter. So many roles we would have played in our life. But once we realize the self, we will be in the self. Even though we perform those roles, we will never be carried away by the relationship or the roles we are playing in. Thus, a person, when he devotes himself to meditate upon the Brahman, the happiness he attains is imperishable. So, when that happens, then happiness is imperishable. So, again, here, again, we go back to the desires, that is kama, krodha, and bhaya. What these three are interconnected with each other. I have kept a plate full of laddus, and I'm asking you to listen to the class and not touch the laddus. Will any of us will be listening to the class? No. We'll be attracted to the laddus. But in the same way, we eat one laddu, we'll be happy. Two, okay. But 3, 4, 5, 10, then naturally that will be a poison to us, and we hate even seeing that laddu for quite some time. So that is how it is. So desire happens. We get carried away by the desire. And when that desire is flows through our mind, the energy of the flow is so strong. And when we don't reach that desire, then naturally, when there is an obstacle, then there comes the anger, krodha, anger. And then when you go attain that particular object and you get hold of that object, then what happens? Letting go of that object becomes a fear. Possessing that object, and you're scared that someone will take away the object, or you lose the object, or the object will move away from you. So naturally, these three are connected. So for us, basically, to understand the desire and control ourselves at the point of desire is what this particular verse talks about. A certain satisfactory joy in the beginning becomes a pit of sorrow. Sense objects, being finite in nature, do not enchant a wise man. Is a wise man carried away by desires? No. So here, there is a violin in a box in a house. It's been there idle for quite some time. And that violin is owned by a grandfather. And the person standing there is also a violinist. He wants to play the violin. Will he be able to take the violin and play it immediately? He needs to tune it. Same way, why? Until these first been repeatedly talking to us about karma yoga and jnana yoga is that we have to tune our instruments, that is 5 sense instruments. So withstand the impulse of desire and anger. So what these instruments give us is desire, anger, and bhaya. The desire, the thought comes down from our intellect and encouraging our heart to move towards the object of desire in the outer world. Anger, when an obstacle arises towards our desire and stops you from attaining it, then there comes anger. And when there is no desire, then hatred is also not known. The one who has mastered over these two emotions is an independent, solitary man of true and steady happiness. That is what you have to tune our inner instrument in such a way that we don't get carried away or we get detached from the objects in the external world. So a man will be satisfied by a mere emptiness, a dark cave of total negation. So this is the mind of a sannyasi. That is, nothing will be in his heart. It will be total darkness, but he will be happy, he will be blissful. The state of complete absence of pain, feeling of contentment and satisfaction. That will be the state of a jnani's mind. When the ego rediscovers itself to be the self, experiences a solid bliss and enjoyment. Not only withdraws himself from the world of object, discovers in himself a sense of bliss and security. He never goes outside the world in search of security, because security is within us. Only when we find that security, happiness will naturally fall into place. flooded with light of pure consciousness and alight with the divine glow. So, whatever happens in the family, if he is a Grihastha Nani, nothing will affect him. His family can fight with his family can laugh, his family can party for him, everything will be the same. So then what will be our mind will start to think, will he be a statue? Will that person be a statue? Will that person have emotions in him? Yes, no emotions in him. He will not react to any emotions, but he's not a stone. That is what happens in his mind is two qualities of Maya is removed. That is Vikshepa and Avarna. Vikshepa is what projection, projecting exactly what we are now. What is projected is because of the Maya. That is me. That is, I think that is me. I am Arundhati. That is because of the projection of Maya. Because we have previous birth, lots of births. From all those births, we get identify ourselves only with this embodiment. This in the Kudaran identify panikrom. So we are so much used to it. So we think whatever projected by Maya is the truth and we accept it. So, avarna, that is veiling the truth. The truth is inside us, but it is veiled. It is ஒரு திரை மாதிரி போட்டு மூடி இருக்குது Maya. So, these both will be completely removed in a jnani. So, the man understands himself and merges with the self. So, man wandered away in his own ignorance and confusion, lives in ever-reviving fire of love. So we all, because of this Maya, we were wandered away in ignorance, thinking this body-mind complex as I. Identifying all from embodiments as him the self. That is not only him. Whoever he sees, whatever object he sees, he starts seeing the Atma in them. So engage in the good of all beings. What will he do? Will he be sitting idle in the home? No. He'll do the lok seva. He'll be the self-appointed. He'll be the self-appointed person taking care of the world around him. So any self-realized person, for that matter, we can see them devoting their life to the work of the upliftment of the society. Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and then Ramana Maharishi. We can have lots of such examples. So start to live in an unbroken consciousness to the divine, the eternal. And it does not mean all the jnani, they go, they talk, they preach. Some jnanis are silent and they prefer to stay silent. But they'll not be selfish. Whatever they do will be only for the good of the society and the people around them. So, here, jnani is like, for example, we take Mother Teresa. She took care of leprosy patient. But if a patient comes with leprosy, we all know what kind of leprosy wound will be. அவங்க ஏதாவது அருவருப்பா இருந்ததா, அவங்க ஏதாவது பண்ணாங்களா இல்லை. He happily took care. சேவை வந்து அவங்க மனம் வந்து ஒரு கம்ப்ளீட்டடா சேவை செய்ய ஆரம்பிச்சாங்க. That will be the state of a jnani. So a man of equipoise amongst the temptations of the vicious atmosphere. எந்த ஒரு மோசமான அட்மாஸ்பியரா இருந்தாலும் that person will always be in a seeker through his own intelligence, self-effort, and divine self-application, conquer desire and anger in him. And that person, did he get help from outside world to conquer his desire? Can we do that? No. Only we have to put our effort in conquering the desire and the anger within us. He has thus completely mastered himself from all threats arising within himself. That person knows the self, gains the bliss of perfection. So Vedanta promises Godhood and perfection now, here, and forever after. So purification of mind, then knowledge, then renunciation of all action, and lastly is moksha. So that person's attitude, அந்த பர்சன் ஒரு டிச் மாதிரி இருக்கு, அது பக்கத்துல உட்கார்ந்து சாப்பிட்டா கூட அருவருப்பா இருக்க மாட்டாங்க. And அவங்களுக்கு என்ன கிடைக்குதோ whatever that person gets, ஓகே அன்னைக்கு சாப்பிட்டுப்பாங்க, அதேதான் நாளைக்கு கிடைக்கணும்னு கூட அவங்க எதிர்பார்க்க மாட்டாங்க. ஸோ ஞானி இஸ் lives by the day, by the minute, not expecting anything. So achieving the perfect mental equipoise, shutting out the external objects, but that is not physically. Physically, he's not getting himself away, moving himself away from the external objects. External objects, everything will be around him, but he will not get carried away by their fancy. So discrete intellectual detachment from our mental reaction towards the external world of objects, we discover the necessary tranquility to start the meditation. So it's like, is the waves bothered that it's going to reach the shore or not? The same way, Jnani is not bothered, he will reach with Brahman or not. In that state of mind, he's already reached the Brahman. So when gazed towards the center of the earth, so here from this verse onwards, the transformation verse for the next chapter, meditation. So such a person, when he starts meditating, when we start having a concentration in the center eye, when we start concentrating, naturally our gaze நம்ம தலை will move upwards. So the human mind is held uplifted and right vehicle for higher contemplation. So when that happens, for us to reach higher will be much easier now. Controlling the breath flow coaxes the mind to a relatively quieter existence. So we have to start watching our breath. So now breathe பண்ணத wash பண்ணும்போது naturally it will quieten our mind. So this again is a recap of the whole chapter. Desire, fear, and anger is when we control these three, naturally the self-development and inner growth happens. So again, desire is pattern of thought. Fear comes along with desire, fear of losing the same. Anger exhibits itself when an obstacle appears between ourselves and the objects of desire. So above emotions are controlled, we have a control the mad impulse of our intellect. The one who has controlled the body, mind, intellect for liberation and who has quietened the flow of his thread will always remain in the contemplation of the truth. So he attains a peace of knowing me, the self. To realize the self in the individual by transcending above the ego, that is the jiva. Yagna, we already seen what it is in the previous chapter. 12 yagnas have been mentioned. Here in a single line, for us to understand it more clearly, it is always yagnas are performed for self-development. So self-dedicated work which one performs in any field of activity. Tapa is self-denial and practice is self-control. That is, we can practice small self-denials to control the desires around us. The self, Maheshwara, the Lord of all gods, the God of all gods, Sarva Loka Maheshwara. That is nothing but Ishvara. We have already seen what it is. Ishvara is the combination of the Brahman and the Maya together. So the Atma within us is what the self is. That is like we've seen the 9 gates. Is the ruler of the 9 gates, the body. And so when all these are performed, then naturally for us to realize the self will be easier. And moreover, here there is a word mentioned called Deva. Deva is nothing but the illuminator. Illuminator is by 5 sense organs are called as illuminator, because only because of these 5 sense organs we are able to gain knowledge from the external world around us. Like because of the eyes we are able to see the form and color. Because of the ears we are able to hear. So each and every 5 sense objects gives us the knowledge. So then these are sacrificed in the fire of yajna to the Brahman. That means when we start and Mastering, not controlling. Mastering these sense organs, naturally the self, the Ishvara, the Maheshwara that is ruling this body will be realized by us. The spiritual experience is realization of the self who presides over all the activities within the body politics. The body politics is nothing but this mind-body complex.
Meditation. How to
At the chapter
meditation. ஆனந்தம் பண்ணலாம்.
இல்ல அதான் எப்படின்னா
ஒவ்வொரு சாப்டர் முடிஞ்சாங்க வராதவங்களுக்கும் இப்ப வந்து நம்ம தனித்தனியா ஒவ்வொருத்தரா சொல்றதை விட இன்னைக்கு இப்போ வந்து அது நல்லா இருக்கு.
புரிய மாட்டேங்குது.
முடிச்சுட்டு பூர்ணமா முடிச்சிருக்கோம். ஓம் பூர்ணமத பூர்ணமிதம் பூர்ணமாதாய பூர்ணமேவாவசிஷ்யதே. ஓம் சாந்தி சாந்தி.